So I used to think that leadership was just about bossing people around and telling people what to do all the time. However, I realized that it's not just about that until not long ago. For those of you who don't know, I'm a swimmer. And I remember the first time I started swimming 5 years ago at my current team. My coach, David, came up to me and asked me a big question, one that I hadn't even thought about before. He asked me what my favorite stroke was. I hadn't thought about it before, and he then answered for me that it was butterfly. He answered for me so confidently that it was impossible for me to say no. David then sat me down beside the pool, and like the true leader that he was, and he still is, he gave me a speech on what felt like what butterfly was. He didn't just tell me butterfly is going to be good for the team and you swimming it is great. He actually led me towards an idea, the idea of me swimming graciously down the pool. He then broke the idea down for me into smaller pieces, almost like a jigsaw puzzle. And he then also, through speech, convinced me that that jigsaw puzzle could be solved and that he would help me do it. Through words, he led me to a picture of me doing success. Now, I only realized the impact this speech had on my swimming journey just as I was swimming the 200 butterfly at regionals this summer. I realized how the words of this man led me to think something, an image of me being successful at something. That is what communication does. That is why it's important in leadership. Communication leads people to think ideas and picture themselves doing things they might not have imagined doing before. David, my leader at that moment, led me to believe that I could do something that I thought was impossible. Now, this is just one example of how important communication has been throughout my life. And I bet you guys can all think of an example like David's speech was for me, where communication has shaped who you are as a person. However, there are other moments in my life where communication has been extremely important as well, and I can just remember off the top of my head. For example, who doesn't remember I Have a Dream, Martin Luther King's amazing speech that shaped American history? Or Greta Thunberg 4 years ago at just 15, shaping how we view climate change. Or my dad, who's here today, giving me a speech on what it meant going out to parties and that he would always have my back. Or you know what? Even Hugh Grant's amazing speech in Love Actually, where he crushed the United States president. Great film, by the way, if you haven't watched it. But what I want to say with all of this is that leaders must be communicators. It's what makes them be good at what they do. It's what makes them actually be able to lead towards thinking what they want them to think, what their audience wants them to think. Now, the thing is, you may be thinking, I'm not a leader. You may be thinking, you guys aren't leaders. However, I think that as a society, we have a misconception of what leadership means. Because leadership isn't just being the CEO of a really important company nowadays, or being the president of a nation. Leadership is much more. Just because you're not a parent, or an important bank owner, or the leader of a country, doesn't mean that you're not a leader. I am none of those things, yet. I've got my eye on being a president one day. However, I am faced daily with situations where I have to become a leader, and I am one. And you guys all are faced with those situations as well. For example, I have a younger brother called Gabriel. I think he's here today. Gabriel, there he is. Yeah. And for Gabriel, I can proudly say I'm a leader. And my mum tells it to me every day. Even he says it to me, and my dad as well, that I am a leader for Gabriel. I'm a role model. Because through the way I communicate and argue my ideas with my little brother, I'm shaping the way he views the world. I'm shaping not only how he views the world, but the structure of the way he thinks about it. Because being a leader isn't just about, as again, being Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. It's about leading people towards an idea, again, that you want them to think about. Now, talking about actual world leaders, does anyone recognize this man? Yes, President Trump. And regardless of your opinion on him, one thing that I can say that he does successfully is communicate. Donald Trump knows his audience. And he has this ability to use simple and direct language, which engages his audience. He makes the people that listen to him, the people who vote for him, actually feel understood and heard, as if he's someone who really gets their concerns. Again, he knows his audience. And that is Trump's secret sauce. He's recognized it before in lots of podcasts where he says that, again, knowing his audience. And even being a comedian is essential when being a politician nowadays. Elaborating more on the being a comedian part of it, I can say that this is very true. Being a comedian is essential when you are trying to communicate with an audience and when you're especially trying to create that bond with them. I did some stand-up comedy last year, and I can say that through laughter, I managed to create a special bond with my audience. And it's essential when you're trying to communicate, especially when you're communicating to inspire. So again, what do I want to say with all of this? Communicating is essential when we are leaders, when we are leading people towards an idea. Communicating through tone, through language, through voice, and also through hand gestures. I can say that the hand gestures thing is very true. I'm a Neapolitan. But again, what I want to say with all of this is that without communication, you can never be a leader. That's one of the main things I want you to take from this talk today. However, you now may be thinking, well, I'm a terrible communicator. I can barely stand up and speak in public and barely have a conversation with people and socialize. How am I ever going to become a leader? However, people can improve at communicating. I can guarantee it. And I have an example. Does anyone recognize this film, The King's Speech? It's a very, very good film. It's on Prime Video, by the way, if you're interested. And I didn't get paid to say that today. But one thing I can say is that this story, this true story, is an exact example of how people can improve at communicating. The story is of this guy here, King George VI. And he became king during World War II. Well, just before it. And being king, you have to give lots of speeches. You have to be able to stand up, and in this case, when radio was invented, actually give a speech to almost half the world, in the case of the King of England. The problem is this king had a terrible stutter. The guy couldn't even sit down and have a conversation with his family at the dinner table. However, he decided to do something about it. He hired a speech therapist, and through a lot of hard work and effort, he managed to deliver one of the most important speeches that's ever been given in history. And what I want to say with all this is that if a guy with a stutter can stand up and, through a bit of hard work and dedication, give one of the best speeches we have ever seen in humanity, then don't tell me you guys can't become better communicators. So, mastering debate, rhetoric, and public speaking isn't just a matter of giving polished speeches or being able to argue your ideas properly. It's about much more. It's about changing the way that we connect, we inspire, and how we lead. It's about having the courage to stand up, the clarity to be understood, and most of all, the empathy to understand who it is you are communicating to. So as you walk out of this door today, I want you to remember this. Leadership is not a title, it's a skill, which means everyone can achieve it, every single one of you. Every conversation you have, every idea you share with people, every moment you engage with the world is an opportunity to lead. So start small. Ask a few questions in class and put your hand up more often. Or engage more in the work meetings you have. Or join a public speaking club or a debate club. Or if you're like I was, just do some stand-up comedy. Because the world needs more voices that lead with intention, clarity, and purpose. The world needs more people who are willing to stand up like me and my friends are doing here today and give good speeches, communicate their ideas properly, and lead. And one last thing. Everyone has a voice. It's just about finding yours. Thank you.